Max Torres with Ducks Digest here with another Oregon football recruiting update for you. Make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. That button, red button, I think, down there below. Another big visitor that not enough people are talking about. And I think a big time recruit that you got to know if you are a fan of the Oregon Ducks and if you follow Oregon football recruiting. Let's talk about Trajen Odom. Trajen Odom is a big time defensive line target for the Ducks here in the 2025 class out of the state of North Carolina. Going to talk to you about why that's important in this video. Trajen Odom recently landed an offer from the Ducks. He got his first offer from he got an offer from the Ducks, I should say, just last month in January, and he got 2 visits from the Oregon coaching staff. You had Dan Lanning out there. You had defensive coordinator Tosh Lapoy out there, Tony Tuioti, the defensive line coach, co-defensive coordinator and safeties coach Chris Hampton, or defensive backs coach, excuse me, no longer the safeties coach exclusively, but Chris Hampton was out there as well in North Carolina. He goes to Weddington High School in Matthews, North Carolina. He was recently at Cary, North Carolina, Panther Creek High School. But this is a guy that Oregon is really prioritizing here in the 2025 class. Not necessarily the highest rated recruit, but he hasn't even played his senior season yet, so I wouldn't be surprised if this stock rises. According to the 247 Sports Composite, he is the number 381 player nationally, the number 37 defensive lineman, and the number 9 recruit in the state of North Carolina. He is rated a 3-star, 0.8880. But man, this guy plays a big brand of football. 32 reported scholarship offers listed at 6'5", 265 pounds. Gonna get into my latest quotes and analysis from his visit and analyze things on the recruiting trail with Odom. But the main reason that he is going to be such a big priority for the Ducks here in the 2025 cycle, just look at what the Ducks did the past 2 cycles along the D-line. 2023, you bring in guys like Mateo Uyunglele, Blake Purchase, Terrence Green, Jaden Moore, Ashton Porter. There are just so many big-time guys, and Tatum Tuioti as well in that 23 class. And then look at 2024. Things got even better for the Ducks. Jericho Johnson, Aiden Breland, a pair of All-Americans there. Zadavian Sims, make it a trio of All-Americans. Elijah Rushing. We know that Dan Lanning and the Ducks like to prioritize the defensive line, and you need big bodies at the line of scrimmage if you're going to win big-time football games. And the big change here, one of the big changes, I should say, in the 2025 recruiting class is that the defensive line talent is not to the same caliber that it was out west in 2024. So the 2025 year for D-line is kind of a down year on the West Coast. So you're not finding these huge bodies like your Aiden Brelands and Jericho Johnsons out west in the 25 class. So that's why Dan Lanning and the Ducks, we always know that they have recruited nationally, but specifically along the D-line, they are going to go to all corners of the country to find their guys. And the one reason I think that Oregon has a great shot with Trajen Odom is because he's originally a West Coast guy. He's from Inglewood, California, but some jobs with his parents moved them around. And, I think going to Oregon kind of is that home away from home, back out to the West Coast, not too far away from Southern California, where he's from, like I said. But, man, getting out to Oregon was really crucial for Trajen Odom because I think it put Oregon very, very high on his list, following that first trip. I think I'd argue that Oregon leads for Trajen Odom after hosting him. And it was really big because I think a lot of guys, they like Oregon. They like what it sounds like, but you can only imagine it so much. Like, this is why it was a big deal for him to get out to Oregon. He said, quote, "First off the bat, just the campus layout and then all the facilities is just amazing. It's what I expected, but even more. Just getting to meet newer staff and then other coaches and then spending time with Coach Lanning, Coach Lapoy, and Coach T, Tony Tuioti. They're all genuine and just great people. And they really talked to him about the brand, that Oregon brand, and the value that it can create for him and how it'll, stick with him even after he moves on, should he decide to commit to Oregon in the long run, right? They're talking about just the relationship with Dan Lanning. That was really huge. I'm looking for some other ones here. This was really cool. He talked to me about another one of the highlights of his trip was actually getting to spend some time with Kenny Farr, the head equipment manager for Oregon football. He puts together, all the cleats, the uniforms, the equipment. That was a really big part for him. And he said he got to spend some extended time with Kenny Farr, getting to just kind of go through and see what things are like on his end of things. He said he wants to get into graphic design or architecture. So just seeing the creative process there was such a big part. I'm really surprised that more recruits don't necessarily spotlight that as a highlight. But when you think about all of the hype around the Oregon brand and Nike and all the crazy uniforms that the Ducks always have, I would think that Kenny Farr will come up more. But man, major shout out to Kenny Farr. He is a huge piece of the puzzle for Oregon, and he brings a lot of value to the table. So cool to see him cool to see him get a shout out from a recruit. So they talked about the life after football aspect of it during the visit. Both of Odom's parents made the trip out with him back to the West Coast, and he was saying, quote, "They loved it. They think it's a perfect fit for me. It's close back home in California, so everything about Oregon is just perfect, honestly." So the Ducks are really doing a good job here. I think they knocked this visit out of the park. And he also said that they're his top school right now. He said, quote, "I loved Oregon before I got there, but just being in Eugene for the first time and experiencing everything firsthand, it's just better for me, and it just elevated everything. They're at the top for me right now, and it's a place that I can really feel like I consider home for me." So now we're in the dead period. He said he's going to chill for a little bit, kind of relax, and then see what happens in the spring here. He plans on going to Ohio State, Georgia, and then maybe another visit out to USC, and then getting back to Oregon. Sounds like he wants to do that as well. And right now it's looking like he's planning to commit in early June, but he did say that he could commit earlier than expected. You never know. You got to keep an eye out on Oregon and Trajen Odom. I think that just given the other defensive line guys that they're recruiting, I think you have Nasir Wyatt as a big one, the local, semi-local, I guess local to me, edge rusher out of Santa Ana, California, modern day. And then you also have a guy like Justin Hill out of Winton Woods High School in the Cincinnati area. That's another guy that you have to watch. He's a 4-star caliber guy that absolutely loved the Ducks and has them as one of his top schools after a recent visit for junior day. So we're still trying to I'm still trying to figure out what Oregon's board looks like on the defensive side of things. So give me a little bit of time there. But Nasir Wyatt is definitely one to know. You had Fahim Delaney, who was out here. He's the number one safety, but maybe he's swayed towards Ohio State right now. You had DJ Pickett, who was another elite defensive back out of Florida. He was recently on campus for at least the second time. Just big for Oregon to get a visit from a Florida guy anytime you can get him on campus. You also have Trey McNutt out of the Cleveland area, Shaker Heights. He's listed as an athlete, but he's the number 2 safety on the 247 Sports Composite. So he's another big name you got to watch. He was on campus for a recent visit to Oregon. So we're kind of getting a good feel for what Oregon, at least I'm trying to get a better feel for what Oregon's big board looks like on defense. And well, I can tell you right now, Trajen Odom is definitely up there for the big time defensive lineman that Dan Lanning and the Ducks would love to add. So keeping a close eye on Trajen Odom and the Ducks. You can read the full story at the link in the description or on ducksdigest.com. Make sure you tap in with me on Twitter and Instagram at mtorresports. You can read me on Ducks Digest. Hit that subscribe button, that red subscribe button here on YouTube to keep the channel rolling. And thank you so much for checking out another Oregon football recruiting video here on YouTube.